the best way to prove your value is to work, is to learn, is to absorb, to be a sponge. But you always want to outwork your potential. As hard as you believe you can work harder than that. And that's what I tried to do when I first came in the league. But basketball is such a direct competition sport that me coming in at 17, I hated when like my teammates would say, I get hit with an elbow. Right? Shaq would hit me with an elbow in practice. And Nick Van Exel would come up and say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, motherfucker, what? And so it's always that competitive nature, the work ethic, and curiosity. Because I asked a lot of questions. Playing with Bryant Scott, I asked him a lot of questions. Eddie Jones, who was great at chasing guards off the screens, and I didn't understand how to do that. I would sit with him before practice, after practice. Magic, James Worthy, Kurt Rambis, Kareem Abdul, all the Laker greats. I would always sit down and just ask them questions about certain games that I studied growing up. What actually happened there? What did you feel there? Why? Bird tough to defend? Why? Because he looks slow as shit to me. So I'm missing something. So tell me what I'm missing. You know what I mean? And so I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could. Just dream. I have dreams, and dreams they should be pure. I think a lot of times when we're born into this world, we actually wind up going backwards. And it seems like the more we mature, the more responsible our dreams become. The more governors we put on ourselves and our ability to dream and to reimagine. And it's always a fight for us parents and for you guys to make sure that your dreams always stay pure. So it's not a matter of pushing beyond the limitations or expectations. It's really a matter of protecting your dreams, protecting your imagination. That's really the key. And when you do that, the world just seems limitless. I always dreamed as a kid that it was possible to score. I always just had a dream. Sometimes you lay down in bed and you visualize things. You just kind of, that's at least how I would go to sleep. Lay down, I'd imagine playing for the Lakers, and I'd imagine the uniforms look like, I'd imagine playing, and smell the arena and all that stuff. And I would see myself, getting hot, scoring 10 straight points. But in a dream, why would you ever interrupt that? You're not going to have a dream and be like, okay, then he misses his next 6. It's not going to happen. So you just keep dreaming and dreaming and dreaming, and before I go to sleep, I'm at 120 points, And so when you grow up, downloading that into your brain over and over and over, and then that summer I made 1,000 shots a day. 1,000, right? That's on top of weight training and my conditioning. I made 1,000 shots, and they weren't just shots. It were shots that you saw in that game. They were specific shots. It was coming out of the corner, going to the pinch post, footwork in the post, coming off the screen. It was very specific. So when you download that into your system, when you go out on the court, you're just executing things that you've done thousands of times before, and you have that dream, then that becomes possible. My philosophy was very simple. And this is where I think film plays a big part of my life. Rudy was one of my favorite films growing up. After watching that film, I come to understand if I could work that hard every day, blessed with the physical tools that I have, what would my career be? And I made a promise to myself in that day that I was going to work that hard every single day, so that when I do retire, I have no regrets. And that was the most important thing for me, is to leave no stone unturned, get better every single day. And if I live that way, then over time, I'd have something that was beautiful. That was my philosophy. It seems like a pretty simple one, but if you live your life to just get better every single day, you do that for 20 years, and what do you have? I wasn't worried about what was to come. I wasn't worried about what just happened. I was just here. And when you're just there in the moment, playing plays right in front of you, your focus is heightened because nothing else matters. That's the space I've tried to get to. As a leader of a team, it's also your responsibility to elevate the rest of the guys. And what people tend to get stuck on a lot is saying, okay, the way to make players better is to pass them the ball when they're open. That's a very trivial way to look at things. What you have to do is you have to get them emotionally to want to be better. You have to get them to an emotional space where they wake up every morning driven to be the best version of themselves, right? And how do you do that? And in practice, for me, it was a chance to drive them, to challenge them, right? And this is where you have to know your teammates, because if it's late, we just had a back-to-back and we had practice the next day, and you show up, and guys don't feel like going through the motions, don't feel like practicing. It's important to know each and every one of them individually, personally, because then you know what nerve to touch. Some guys, it's like, okay, come on, we can do this. That'll get them going. Other guys, no. You got to figure out what button to push. Powell is always Spain. If I tell them how they lost in a gold medal to us and how they're going to lose again, and how I'm going to beat your ass in practice just like I beat you in a gold medal game, he would hate that. He'd hate that. But that's what practice was. You have to drive them. You absolutely have to. And if practice is more intense and harder than a Game 7 will be, then a Game 7 will be easy. But if it's not, then that's when teams start folding and capitulating. Tolerance for that and the kind of culture that the Laker organization stood for winning championships is not tolerated. You're going to show up to play. You're going to lollygag through the scrimmage, through this drill. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to let you know I beat you. I want you to reconsider your professional life choice. For the most part, people will say, okay, that doesn't make a great teammate. Well, I'm not here to be a great teammate. I'm here to help you win championships. I think that if we focus on one thing and do that one thing exceptionally well, you won't fail at that one thing. So sometimes you got to put the other stuff to bed and focus on what you believe is the core of the company. And that always starts from what you love to do.